Any views or opinions expressed on KUR are not necessarily those of Kutztown University, Kutztown University Student Government, Kutztown University Student Services Incorporated, KUR staff and management, or other affiliated organizations.
Welcome to Emmy Knows, the Monday afternoon KU radio show that interviews campus people of interest. And now, your host, Emmeline, here on the radio voice of Kutztown University, KUR.
You're listening to the radio voice of Kutztown University, KUR. I'm Emmeline, and you're listening to Emmy Knows, a weekly get-to-know-you featuring the people who help make KU great. In the studio with me today is Mandy Fretz, Associate Director of Housing and Dining Services here at KU. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Of course.
So we've been planning this interview to sort of coincide with the housing signups for next year for a few months now. It's finally here. Thank you again for emailing me this morning. I'm really excited to find out about your role on campus. I've been to your office in Old Main. It's very fancy, by the way.
Thank you.
To start us off, I'm wondering, what does your main role as an associate director in the housing department sort of entail?
Okay. So my main role in the housing office is I work with all the housing assignments. So from the time the student commits to KU or while they're incumbent student and need a place to live on campus, they would work with me to get that assignment done. I work with the residence life staff to make sure that everybody is happy and content, or as content as they can be in their residence hall space. I work with room changes and all the processes behind the scenes that help students live in our residence halls.
That's awesome. So what does a typical day in your life at KU look like?
I spend a lot of time in my office, a lot of time behind the scenes, behind a computer screen. I work very closely in the software, so a lot of things I do, students don't necessarily see. Other staff members may not even see it, but it's a lot of setting things up, making sure processes are available for students and ready to go. There's some troubleshooting that I have to do. Students that may have roommate conflicts may come to see me. Students that have disability services needs may come to see me to do housing assignments, so I do get the opportunity to occasionally meet with some students, but a lot of the work I do is behind the scenes. The really cool part about my day is every day is unpredictable. So I do have set processes that I do, and I have a general timeline of what my academic year looks like, or I should say my entire year. But the really cool part is I could come in and we could have had a facilities issue overnight and we need to do some room changes for students, and I get to do that. There may be students that are having some roommate conflicts or students that just want to go live with friends, and I get the opportunity to meet with them. I get to work really closely almost every day with the residence hall staff, the graduate resident directors, so that's a really cool experience in my job. The best part about my day-to-day is the unpredictability, honestly.
Okay. And so I was telling you a little bit earlier, I was doing some internet stalking. I know that, you started as a student here. So what was your major and how did you sort of get involved with housing and dining services?
I thought you're going to laugh as soon as you hear my major. So I did graduate from KU. I have a degree in political science. So, yeah. So I had big dreams. I was going to law school. I was going to spend my life in a courtroom. And believe it or not, during my senior SEM class, my senior year, I just had a moment and I said, this is not the direction I want my career to go. And I was fortunate enough to spend a lot of my undergraduate career in residence life. I worked on staff, I was in volunteer opportunities, I was in a lot of student organizations. And I just realized in that moment, in that class, that in the middle of senior SEM, on the basement in the grad center, that I didn't think that I was going to be in a courtroom anymore. I thought that I needed to be on a college campus. So I left class that day. I called home. I said, I'm not sure that I'm going to finish out this degree. And of course, after some conversations with my parents, the best step was to finish the degree since I was, about 6 months away from graduation. And then I just applied to graduate school here at KU. I applied for a resident director position to be a grad student running a residence hall.
Wow.
And here I still sit.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool.
That's very cool. So you were saying you sort of started as an undergrad, like working in the residence halls. What was that sort of like?
It was a neat experience. So I came from a really small high school, all-girl high schools. So to come to KU was a little bit of a culture shock for me. So I came to KU, and my parents were really as a first-generation college student, my parents were really played a pivotal role in making sure that I got the best of the college experience. So they had a rule that I wasn't allowed to come home on the weekends.
Oh.
So, yeah, which is really contrary to a lot of students at KU. So I figured, after being homesick for quite a few weeks, that I needed to change up the game a little bit and I needed to do something. So I started to get involved, and that's how I got involved in Res Life. I started as a desk receptionist. It was a great experience for me. You asked what it was like, and I don't know that I would envision my college experience to be any different. It's where I met some of my very best friends.
That's awesome.
We did all the same things together. We worked together. We were in organizations together. It was really cool.
That's awesome. And which dorm was your first?
So I lived in Old Main. When it was Old Main was a residence hall.
Wow.
And it was all female.
Okay.
So I lived there for my first and second year. And then I moved to Golden Bear Village South, where I lived for my junior and senior year. And I lived in Golden Bear South Phase 2 the first year it opened.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very
I've been here a long time.
And so then you said you applied to grad school here, and why did you decide Kutztown, and what was your concentration?
So Kutztown was because I made the decision really late to go to grad school.
Okay.
Probably November of my senior year. So at
Wow,
that point,
okay.
most programs, most students who were graduating in May already knew that what they were doing. So I made the decision that, all right, I'll give Kutztown a try. I applied to the Student Affairs program, and that's what I ended up getting my degree in. My master's degree it's a master's in education and higher education student affairs administration.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds so fancy.
Right?
How do you think your experience, as an undergrad and as a graduate student at KU sort of affects how you do your job now?
Oh, I think it is why I do my job now and how I do my job now. And I think that's because I know what KU did for me as a student those 4 years, and even through my graduate career. I know the experiences I was given. I know that it was the moment in life that I was able to define who I truly was, that period of my life. So I come to work every day to help students do that. I had a lot of influential people while I was here at KU, both friends and staff here at KU. So I come to campus every day, to work every day with that goal in mind.
That's awesome. And I know we were speaking a little bit before we were on air about, other people who work on campus who are in a sort of administrative role. They do a lot of psychology sort of background, things like that. Do you do sort of that with students? You were saying you do with real room changes and such like.
Yeah.
Do
So the really cool thing about my degree is, although it's in student affairs administration, the base of my degree is in counseling.
Okay.
I just didn't go for the long licensure track to be a licensed counselor.
Okay.
But a lot of my classes were the foundation of that, and that's because I think every interaction with the students is just like that. So I sit with room changes, and it's a lot of understanding where the student's coming from, understanding where they're at, what they need to be successful. So it's a lot of conversations. That's the other really cool part about my job, the unpredictability. And there could be a process on paper that is not what I'm going to follow when a student comes in the door, because every student's situation is different.
That's awesome. So it's also the time of year when high school students are applying to colleges and sort of going on campus tours and everything. What sort of makes KU stand apart from other universities in the realm of housing and dining?
I think for housing, the thing that makes us stand apart is we still have traditional residence halls.
Okay.
If you visit a lot of our competitors in the state system, they did away with traditional residence halls. The trend for students in years past was that students wanted suite style, they wanted their own private rooms, they wanted their own private bathrooms, and I'm not saying that that's not what KU students want, but KU made a commitment that we're going to provide our students with what will make them most successful.
Okay.
And it's statistically proven that students in traditional residence halls retain at a higher rate and graduate at a faster rate because they're going through the experience with the exact same students who are going through the same experience as them. So in a traditional residence hall, we didn't add another door. If you visited our suites on campus, you know that a suite or an apartment is adding an additional door for students to access other students outside of the ones they're living with.
Okay.
So in a traditional hall, they have one door, and then they open it up, and they're in a hallway full of other students that are going through the exact same things they are. So we made that commitment to students that we're going to keep our traditional residence halls, and I think that also comes with the financial piece. It is no secret that the cost of education is really high.
Definitely.
And that a lot of students nowadays are paying for it themselves, trying to avoid loans at all costs. And even when they need loans, they don't want to take out that much. So traditional residence halls allows us the opportunity to provide our students with a cheaper option for housing. I mean, new buildings, suite style, make things cost a little higher. And when other institutions around us are just installing suite style, that makes us different. So that's the housing end. The dining end, I think what makes us different here at KU is our entire dining program. We, a couple years ago, started the My Time dining program. We have dining available to students 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Wow.
Yeah, so the South Dining Hall is open. It opened in August. It will close at Thanksgiving recess after everyone's gone for recess. It will open before everyone gets back on campus. We'll stay open until the end of the semester. So that's really exciting for our students, and we have unlimited access. So a lot of dining programs across the country, you only can go into the dining facility so many times a day, not in our two main residential facilities in the Cub Cafe or the South Dining Hall. You can enter them as many times as you want if you're on one of our unlimited meal plans.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and to come with that part of the program, it was really important for us to make our program a social program. We didn't want to provide just a place for our students to eat, so that came with the renovations of both the Cub Cafe and the South Dining Hall.
Honestly, South is so nice.
Right? The downstairs is beautiful.
I love, I follow like the Instagram of and I see them posting about karaoke and stuff all the time.
Yep,
It's
they do
awesome.
programs down there all the time.
Yeah. So what would be like some advice you'd give a student on choosing to attend a school like Kutztown?
I think you have to go with the feeling. Kutztown was not on my list of institutions to go to when I was applying to schools. It was one of those last-minute decisions for me when I was a high school senior. I decided to come to KU. I didn't intend to graduate from KU, to be honest with you. I thought it would just be, it was close enough to home but far enough away in a place where I could start, decide where I wanted to finish, and I would transfer out. But as soon as I stepped foot on campus, I knew. And I think that almost all the students I talk to say they just knew. And I think that that's what's most important. You just have to feel right being where you are.
That's awesome. So talking about our returning students, Wednesday is when the housing for next year opens, correct?
Yep, for our returning students, yep.
So what are the need-to-know facts about the housing and dining for those students?
Okay, so this is just the housing process. Dining is
Sure.
separate. That happens in later part of spring.
Okay, sure.
But the housing process is a 4-step process for our returning students. Students need to, step 1 of the process is complete their housing application fee. They can do that starting Wednesday, and that will actually run until January 31st.
Okay.
And then in the middle of that process, students will have the opportunity to log on to My College Roomie software, create their roommate profile. In this software is where students will create their roommate groups on who they wish to live with.
Okay.
And then after that, they'll form their roommate groups, and then they'll do room selection. The entire process will be wrapped up by the end of March. But step 1 starts Wednesday. It's the most important step. That's what secures everybody a spot in the room selection processes. And the other little tidbit is important to remember is that we have our on-campus residency requirement.
Okay.
So all new students who are currently in their first year at KU have to have lived on campus for 4 semesters or until they achieve 60 credits.
Okay.
So if they fall in the residency requirement, they are required to go through this process. So they just want to make sure they do it on their own accord so that they have the opportunity to pick their roommates and pick their rooms. If they're required to live on campus and don't go through the process, I will complete their assignment for them at the end of March.
Scandal. Now, is that something that ends up happening a lot?
No.
Okay.
No.
That's
Most
awesome.
of our students participate.
They're pretty-
They want to
pretty
know
up
where
on
they,
it. Yeah.
they want to pick where they live.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, just sort of wrap it up, we're entering the last weeks of the semester, which we were also talking about earlier. Thanksgiving recess is a couple weeks away. Finals are close after. What's a top tip that you'd like to share with our campus audience? Just about, school, life in general.
I think it's just make the most of it. The stress, I know, can be really overwhelming, especially right now. You're down to the wire. Grades are serious. But to make sure that you're taking it all in, that your experience inside the classroom is really important, but so is your experience outside. So take the time you need, take the self-care you need, do things that you may not have the opportunity to do if you weren't at KU, and just really try to enjoy your time. The semesters go by really fast.
That's awesome. And so if people want to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
They can shoot me an email. My email is afretz@kutztown.edu, or they can come visit us in the housing office. We're in the housing and dining office in 106 Old Main.
Awesome. And everybody over there is so friendly.
They are. We work in a really good office.
That's awesome. Well, thank you all so much for listening to Emmy Knows. I'm your host, Emmeline Nolan, and in the studio today is Mandy Fretz. I'll be back with you on KUR next week with more of the people who help make KU great.